Supreme General Zalcor stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing down at the scarred remains of Earth. The once thriving human world was now a husk of fire and rubble, the air thick with the remnants of orbital bombardment. He took in the sight with detached amusement. Another Deathworld species crushed beneath the might of the Zorvith Dominion. Reports from his officers confirmed what he already knew. Human resistance was broken. Their technology, outdated and crude, had posed no real threat to the Dominion's fleet. Their armies had fought with desperation. But desperation was a poor substitute for power. Zalcor allowed himself a satisfied grin. Victory had been swift, decisive, and absolute. He turned to his chief scientist, Viarek, who stood rigidly beside him. Had we found anything of interest? Viarek hesitated, his mandibles clicking in uncertainty. The humans' weapons, Supreme General. They are strange. Zalcor's grin faded into mild irritation. Strange? How so? They lack refinement. Their mechanisms are inefficient, unpredictable. They function on outdated principles of kinetic force. Compared to our plasma systems, they are primitive. The general scoffed. Then why waste my time? Discard them. Viarek shifted uncomfortably. That is the issue, Supreme General. We have encountered irregularities. Zalcor's eyes narrowed. Explain. The scientist gestured toward a display screen. Footage played of a Zorvith soldier conducting a routine analysis of a human firearm. The weapon discharged unexpectedly, the projectile piercing through reinforced plating that was meant to withstand high-energy plasma rounds. The soldier reeled back in shock, his armor barely holding. Zalcor frowned. A malfunction? We assumed so, Viarek replied, until it happened again. And again, these weapons, despite their primitive construction, ignore some of our standard defensive measures. Our energy shielding is optimized for plasma-based attacks, not physical projectiles. The general waved a dismissive hand. An oversight. Adjust the shields. Viarek hesitated again. It's not just that. We have attempted to integrate human weapons into our databases, but the calculations do not hold. They are inconsistent, unpredictable, unlike our energy-based weaponry, which follows precise targeting algorithms. These weapons function on variables that resist standardization. Even our targeting AI struggles to calculate their trajectories. Zalcor let out a sharp breath. Enough. Show me. Within minutes, he stood in the testing chamber. A confiscated human rifle was placed on the table, and a Zorvith officer held it awkwardly, as though it were some crude artifact. A drone was activated across the chamber, a standard combat training unit used to test weapons. Fire, Zalcor ordered. The officer pulled the trigger. The rifle cracked with a deafening roar, the projectile launching faster than the eye could track. The drone shielding shimmered but failed to deflect the impact. A clean hole appeared in its armored chassis. Zalcor's mandibles twitched. That should not be possible. Viarek nodded. We increased the drone's shielding beyond what is standard. The round still penetrated. The general approached the damaged drone, running his clawed hand over the impact site. Unlike the clean burns of plasma weapons, this left jagged, fractured metal, damage that was more difficult to repair. Had we attempted to disassemble and analyze these weapons? Viarek shifted. Yes, Supreme General. The results were odd. Zalcor turned sharply. Odd. We tried to replicate them, but even minor deviations render them unreliable. The humans have perfected the design through a process we do not fully grasp. They account for errors, imperfections, even environmental factors. Their weapons function under conditions where ours would fail. The general stared at the rifle. It looked like nothing more than a crude assembly of metal and chemical compounds. And yet, something about it unsettled him. Bring me more, he ordered. I want every human weapon cataloged and tested. As his officers rushed to comply, Zalcor's unease deepened. He had believed this conquest to be a mere formality. A species with such crude technology had no place in the galactic order. And yet, as he stared at the weapon before him, a thought crept into his mind, one he did not like. Had he underestimated them? The chamber was silent, save for the rhythmic clicking of Zorvith engineers as they worked. Human weapons lay scattered across the research facility, dissected, analyzed, and tested under the Dominion's most advanced scanners. Yet, the data made no sense. Supreme General Zalcor observed from an elevated platform, arms crossed. He had seen enough wars to recognize patterns. There was always logic behind weapons, a calculated reason for their design. But human weapons defied logic. A scientist approached, his crest twitching with unease. Supreme General, we have conducted extensive tests. These weapons do not function like our own. There is no predictability in their behavior. Zalcor's gaze hardened. That is nonsense. Weapons follow rules. The scientist hesitated. Not these. Observe. A live demonstration was prepared. A Zorvith soldier was given a human projectile weapon, what humans called a sniper rifle. The target was a floating drone at medium range, standard for Dominion training exercises. Fire, Zalcor commanded. The soldier pulled the trigger. A single round erupted from the weapon, traveling faster than the Dominion scanners could track. The drone exploded in a burst of sparks, its shielding proving useless. Zalcor frowned. Our weapons destroy targets with far greater efficiency. This means nothing. The scientist gestured toward another drone, this time with reinforced armor. Now, Supreme General, watch closely. The soldier fired again. The bullet struck the drone surface, but instead of simply penetrating, it caused a cascade failure. The impact's kinetic force shattered the drone's outer shell, sending splinters of metal flying. Zalcor's eyes narrowed. Explain. We have discovered a fundamental flaw in our understanding of kinetic weaponry. Plasma and energy weapons deliver clean, controlled destruction, reducing targets to atoms. Human weapons do not. They create secondary effects, shrapnel, concussive force, unpredictable damage patterns. Their warfare is designed to maximize chaos. The general's grip tightened. You're telling me they rely on uncontrollable destruction? Yes, the scientist confirmed. And that is precisely why our simulations fail. Our combat strategies are based on calculated engagements. Human weapons introduce too many variables: ricochets, fragmentation, environmental adaptation. A single projectile does not merely wound. It changes the battlefield itself. Zalcor turned to another researcher. And their explosive weapons? The scientist's mandibles twitched. Even worse. Observe this grenade. A mechanical arm placed a standard human fragmentation grenade into a containment unit. The scientist activated it remotely. The explosion sent shards of metal in every direction, embedding into the walls of the test chamber. But the scanners showed something else. Energy readings fluctuated wildly in the aftermath. The shrapnel does not follow predictable patterns, the scientist explained. Even our most advanced shielding cannot deflect every fragment. These weapons are designed not for efficiency, but for absolute destruction. Zalcor's unease grew. His species had always viewed warfare as a matter of superior firepower and tactical precision. The idea of weapons designed for raw, uncontrolled damage was primitive, and yet it worked. A new test was arranged. A Zorvith battle drone was deployed against a simulated human ambush using salvaged Earth weapons. The outcome was immediate. Plasma bolts fired with perfect accuracy, but the human resistance forces moved unpredictably, their weapons discharging at odd angles, striking weak points in armor. Bullets bounced off surfaces. Grenades forced the drone into disadvantageous positions. Within moments, the advanced battle drone was destroyed. Zalcor clenched his jaw. This is impossible. Viarek, who had been observing silently, finally spoke. It is not impossible, Supreme General. It is simply human. Zalcor turned to him sharply. Viarek gestured to a crude human weapon, a rusted rifle half broken, yet still operational. Their technology is not superior. It is adaptive. Humans do not build perfect weapons. They build weapons that function under any condition. Extreme cold, extreme heat, dirt, water, radiation. None of it stops their weapons. They do not expect clean, flawless warfare. They expect survival. The room was silent. Zalcor stared at the human weapons before him. Primitive, he had called them. But now, he was no longer so sure. Primitive things did not endure. And yet, these weapons had. His fists clenched. He had dismissed these humans as weak. He had thought their world had fallen. But a new thought now formed in his mind. What if he had been wrong? Zalcor sat in his private war chamber, reviewing every scrap of data on human weaponry. The inconsistencies, the unpredictability, the sheer resilience of these crude tools. It defied every principle of warfare the Dominion had perfected. He had thought the problem was human weapons alone. He was wrong. It was how humans designed them. A new report arrived. Zorvath engineers had attempted to recreate one of Earth's oldest weapons, a rifle design over 3 centuries old. They had built it with Dominion-grade materials, ensuring absolute precision. Yet when tested, it jammed after a few shots, refused to fire under harsh conditions, and degraded faster than expected. But when they tested a human-built version of the same weapon, one that had been buried in dirt for over a decade, it fired perfectly. Zalcor's mandibles tightened. Why? Vierek exhaled slowly. Because humans do not build for perfection. They build for imperfection. Their weapons are not designed to be superior. They are designed to be unbreakable. The weight of that statement settled over the war chamber. Another report, this time on biological warfare. Zalcor's gaze darkened as he scanned the findings. Their weapons affect organic targets as well. Vierek nodded grimly. Observe. The chamber's hollow display activated. A Dominion test subject, a genetically enhanced soldier, resistant to most known toxins, was exposed to a captured human chemical weapon. The results were immediate and horrifying. Flesh darkened, lungs seized. The subject convulsed violently before collapsing. Zalcor's grip tightened on his chair. Dominion weapons killed cleanly. Human weapons? They did not. Their incendiary weapons are just as disturbing. Vierek continued. Plasma burns are instant. Human firebombs, however. Another recording played. Human napalm blanketed a battlefield. The flames did not dissipate like energy blasts. They clung to surfaces, crawled across armor, consumed everything in their path. Zorva's soldiers screamed as the fire ignored their shields, burning through metal, seeping into every gap. Zalcor forced himself to remain composed. He had once believed his kind to be superior in every way. But now, a realization dawned on him. Human weapons were not made to conquer. They were made to make sure the enemy suffered. He turned to Vierek. Their weapons are not elegant, nor are they refined. No, Supreme General, Vierek agreed. They are relentless. The next test was on durability. The chamber filled with a hum of machinery as a centuries-old human rifle was submerged in mud, frozen in ice, then exposed to temperatures that would crack Dominion alloys. Finally, it was retrieved. A Zorvath soldier wiped the surface clean, chamber round and fired. The shot rang out, flawless. Zalcor stood. Enough. The chamber fell silent. He had come to Earth believing its people were weak, that their weapons were outdated relics. Now, he realized something far worse. Humans had never built weapons expecting victory. They had built them expecting to survive. And that meant one thing. The war was not over. It had only begun. Zalcor's mind raced as he walked through the wreckage of what had once been a human stronghold. The air smelled of burnt metal and scorched earth. Yet among the ruins, scattered remnants of human resistance remained. Abandoned weapons, blood-stained helmets, and spent casings littered the ground. The humans had lost this battle, but something in his gut told him they had not lost the war. A transmission crackled through his command interface. Supreme General, we have a situation. Zalcor stiffened. Report. We've detected human survivors regrouping underground. Small numbers, but they are not retreating. They are rearming. His mandibles clenched. Send a strike team. Finish them. The transmission hesitated. Zalcor narrowed his eyes. Did you not hear me, Commander? The voice on the other end was uneasy. Supreme General, we have engaged them 3 times. Silence. Zalcor's voice was low. And they are still there. He felt his heart beat faster. How? A new screen flickered to life, displaying live footage from the battlefield. His forces moved in perfect formation. Shields raised, plasma rifles charged. They advanced into the ruins, sweeping for hostiles. And then chaos. Gunfire erupted from unpredictable angles. Zorva's soldiers fell before they could even register where the attacks were coming from. Explosions sent bodies flying. Bullets ricocheted, finding weak points in their armor. A Dominion trooper took cover behind collapsed structure, only for a human blade to stab through the cracks, dragging him into the darkness. Zalkor's blood ran cold. This was no organized counteroffensive. This was something far worse. This was warfare without rules. Another camera feed showed a Dominion patrol in the ruins. Their heat scanners detected nothing. The area was clear. Then movement. A single figure emerged from the dust. A human, wounded, bleeding, barely able to stand. He carried a weapon scavenged from the fallen. A Dominion soldier raised his rifle. The human should have surrendered, should have accepted defeat. Instead, he grinned, a grenade in his hand. The explosion ripped through the patrol. The feed went dead. Zalkor felt something unfamiliar settle into his chest. Not frustration, not anger, dread. VA Rex's voice broke the silence. Supreme General, we miscalculated. Zalkor turned sharply. VA Rex hesitated. We assumed their weapons were flawed, that their tactics were reckless, that their technology was outdated. But none of that matters. Zalkor exhaled slowly. Because VA Rex's mandibles clicked. Because humans do not fight wars to win. He met Zalkor's gaze. They fight wars to ensure that even in defeat, the enemy bleeds. Zalkor looked at the battle map again. The humans should have been wiped out. Yet, there they were, fighting, resisting, adapting. His victory was a lie. The humans had not been conquered. They had become the war itself.